Welcome to the deep dive. You've brought us a whole stack of source material articles research because you need the key insights and you need them fast.
And that's our job. We synthesize it all, giving you that shortcut to being really well informed on what we think is a critical and often very unseen modern challenge.
That's right. So today we're doing a deep exploration into a phenomenon that honestly it came up across all of these sources.
It's this specific, very pervasive psychological and frankly financial pressure. And it's being felt more and more by people over the age of 55.
So our mission here is really, well, it's about two things, right? First, we have to get into the data, the economic context that's actually creating this feeling.
And second, and this is just as important, we want to offer some tangible validation.
Yeah.
If you, listening right now, feel this,
Yeah.
we want to show you that it's not some kind of internal failing.
Exactly. It's grounded in very real external shifts happening all around us.
We've sort of distilled this down, and we're calling this sensation the quiet pressure. And it's crucial to understand the sources all emphasize this is not some big dramatic crisis.
No, it's not like a car crash.
Not at all. You can't just, circle a date on the calendar and say that's when it all started.
It's so much more insidious than that. Our sources describe it as a slow, steady pressure, something that just sort of sits on your shoulders day after day.
Yeah.
And it's the kind of thing that makes life just feel heavier, more demanding than it used to, even on the days when you feel like you are doing everything right.
You're following the playbook.
Exactly. You're following the playbook, but it's not working the same way.
That image of something that sits on your shoulders is just perfect because it captures that constant underlying load. It's like the new background noise for millions of people in this age group.
Okay, so let's dig into where this pressure even comes from, because the sources shared this one really powerful anecdote that I think defines how it just creeps up on you.
I know the one you mean.
The person sharing it said they felt the shift a few years back, but they made a point to say nothing fell apart, nothing exploded.
Nothing dramatic happened. It wasn't some personal emergency or a big financial collapse that triggered
It just shifted.
quietly. And to understand why that shift feels so jarring, we really have to look at the historical context, the work ethic of the 55-plus generation.
Right.
I mean, for decades, the mantra was simple, wasn't it? Put my head down, work hard, do what needs to be done. You sacrificed, you saved.
You operated on a promise. The promise that all that hard work, all that effort would eventually lead to stability.
To some
Yeah.
breathing room.
And for a long time, that formula worked. In the 80s, the 90s, that was the path to a stable life. But here's the core conflict our sources are pointing to.
This is where it all changes.
The pressure really starts because
Oh,
the
yeah.
world, after all those decades of your dedication, it didn't slow down to match where you are in life.
No, it didn't.
It sped up. It sped up. And that external acceleration that just completely breaks the contract that everyone thought they were working under.
Think about what that means. You spend decades fulfilling your end of the bargain, setting yourself up for maybe a comfortable retirement around 65.
That finish line seemed stable when you were, say, 30.
Right. And now you look up and you realize the finish line itself is moving. And it's moving faster than you can possibly chase it.
So we need to name the forces here, right? Because when the sources talk about external forces, they're not being vague. This isn't personal inadequacy.
Not at all. It's this intersection of rapid technological obsolescence and, of course, cost of living inflation. And those two things are specifically targeting the very structures of security this group built.
Okay, wait. When we talk about technology, are we just talking about, learning how to use a new phone, or is it something deeper for this demographic?
It's fundamentally deeper. It's about the economic effect of the technology. For so many workers over 55, their value is tied to all this accumulated specialized experience.
Right, their expertise.
Decades of it. And now you have automation, advanced software. They're digitizing or even eliminating tasks that used to require all that human judgment. So the value of your 20 or 30 years of knowledge,
The skills premium.
the skills premium is declining. And it's declining much faster than anyone ever anticipated.
So the pressure isn't just about keeping up with new apps. It's about watching the core currency of your entire career, your experience, get devalued by the market.
Yes. And that changes the entire retirement savings equation.
It has to.
And the source is really clear on this. It says people in this age group are still capable, still thoughtful, still determined. But the environment itself has changed the rules of the game.
That pressure just wasn't there in their 30s because the pace of change was Well, it was more predictable. Experience was an asset that grew over time.
And now it's a constantly depreciating asset. It requires this constant, often really stressful investment in upskilling just to stay where you are.
Which makes that feeling of tightness completely logical. It means the feeling is real. It's not in your head.
Precisely. And this is where the source material transitions so well, from that general feeling to the very specific, concrete moments where this quiet pressure shows up.
Okay, let's get into those. The 4 big examples, because these are the moments where that weight on the shoulders becomes a real, tangible stress.
The first one, and it's maybe the most visceral, is the feeling you get when looking at the bills.
Which sounds basic, but I imagine it's more complicated than that.
It is, because you have to ask why bills feel different for someone over 55 today than they did 20 years ago. The assumption was always that major debts, like your mortgage, might be winding down.
Right, you'd have more flexibility.
But it's the inflation disparity. The cost of the things essential to this age group, healthcare, prescriptions, property taxes, those have skyrocketed. They've far outpaced wage growth or savings.
So a fixed income doesn't mean fixed costs.
Not at all.
Yeah.
That mismatch is the core stressor. You're paying way more for things you absolutely cannot negotiate.
That makes sense. Okay, the second pressure point. When contemplating what the next few years could look like, this gets at that future uncertainty, doesn't it?
It's directly tied to that devaluation of experience we were just talking about. Many people over 55 find themselves in the gig economy or in project-based roles because that stable long-term employment is just harder to find.
And that volatility makes it impossible to plan.
Impossible. You can't predict your income for the next year, let alone the next 5. So the goalpost for security is it's constantly shifting because your income is no longer stable.
And the third one brings us back to that acceleration we mentioned. The pressure is felt when observing how fast technology keeps moving.
And again, this isn't just being annoyed by a new iPhone update.
So what is it then? What's the real consequence of that technological shift?
It's a constant mandatory state of learning. It used to be that you'd master a skill, and you could leverage that skill for decades. Now, competence is ephemeral. You have to spend so much mental energy just adapting to new software, new platforms. Energy you thought you'd be dedicating to, I don't know, mentoring or just slowing down.
It's a fundamental change in your mental workload.
Okay.
And the final example is, it's the most poignant one, I think. The pressure hits when someone mentions retirement.
Yes.
And your internal thought is, I'm still trying to make sense of right now.
That disconnect is it's profound. For decades, retirement was the reward, right? The finish line.
Yeah.
This generation watched their parents retire with pensions, with a sense of security.
And now it's all self-managed 401ks, vulnerable to every market dip, and this anxiety that you just don't have enough time left to recover if something goes wrong.
Exactly. The psychological freedom you expected at this stage, the ability to look forward and rest, it's being replaced by this crushing sense of urgency.
So to sum it all up, life just feels tighter.
Tighter, more expensive, more unpredictable, and far more demanding than it should be at this stage. That tightness is the quiet pressure in action.
Okay, so let's shift to the psychological part of this, because the sources identify what they call the most challenging part. And it's not actually the pressure itself.
No.
It's feeling like you're carrying it alone, and that seems like a contradiction. If so many people are feeling this, why the isolation?
That is the key question. And the isolation persists because this is happening to a generation that was taught to equate any financial struggle with personal failure.
They value independence, self-sufficiency.
Deeply. So admitting you're struggling to keep up, whether it's with bills or technology, it feels like admitting you failed at the whole game. That you broke the contract, when in reality the contract was broken externally.
So the shame is the barrier. It's easier to just suffer this pressure silently than to risk the judgment you think will come if you admit what's happening.
Exactly right. And that isolation just makes the pressure 100 times heavier. When you think you're the only one, you internalize it. You think it's a personal failing, not a shared reality.
And that's why this research is so important. It serves as validation. It's basically saying you are not imagining it.
And you are not alone.
A huge number of people over 55 are in this exact same boat. This is the new norm, not the exception.
And what's really fascinating is that the sources referred to a movement that's forming around this. It's a recognized, shared experience that's starting to build a community.
So what does that movement do? How does it help if the shame is still so powerful?
Well, right now its main role is providing context, shared understanding. It may not offer financial relief, but it offers immense psychological relief.
Ah, by reframing the narrative.
Yes, it shifts the story from what am I doing wrong to what is this environment doing to us? And that shared context, that's the first step towards finding any real solutions.
Once you realize the world sped up, you can stop blaming yourself for not being able to keep a pace that is, frankly, unsustainable for anyone's long-term well-being.
That is the core insight of this whole deep dive.
Yeah.
Just being able to distinguish between your own actions and these massive systemic pressures, that's the first step to regaining a sense of control.
Which brings us to our wrap-up, the final takeaway from all this. If you are feeling this quiet pressure, please internalize this one finding. You are not falling behind.
And you are not doing anything wrong.
You are simply living in a world that changed faster and more fundamentally than anyone expected.
And knowing that reality gives you permission to adjust, you're allowed to move through this stage of life at a pace that actually makes sense for you.
Not the pace that's being dictated by this accelerating market.
Exactly.
So we've spent this time defining the pressure and validating it. But the source material also suggests a really crucial, pragmatic path forward, something that needs a much calmer exploration.
It does. And that path is about directly confronting the single biggest driver of this pressure, the cost of living for people in this specific age bracket. The analysis has to move beyond just general inflation numbers and get into targeted, practical strategies.
And the sources are very clear on this. The goal is not to approach that topic from a place of fear.
No, fear just makes the pressure worse. It paralyzes you.
The approach has to be calm, clear, steady.
Perspective-driven. The ultimate aim here is to find tangible strategies, financial, community-based, whatever they are, that can help bring some much-needed breathing room back into your life. The work ahead is about finding those levers of control so you can stabilize your own position in this crazy accelerating world.